Blood Bowl today, and we're looking at how I painted up my Black Orcs from the Season 2 starter set. Spray black first, a really good thorough spray, making sure we're not showing any of the plastic base colour showing through. Then a spray paint of leadbelcher from Citadel. Not 100% coverage, because you want to leave some of the black showing through from underneath. So if you spray from above, got a 45-degree angle, a little bit of zenith will work there, so that when you do the painting scheme, the undertones make that a bit darker. Using a mix of paints today, Vallejo and Games Workshop, depending on what took my fancy. Again, you can use whatever paints you wish. First starting layer was just a light brown from Vallejo, and literally going through all the cloth, so the trousers, the gloves, and any of the detail that matches there. So not going to show you every single paint stroke, just give you a start of where we're at through this. Obviously this is my 5th or 6th video I've done now, so any comments are greatly appreciated. Trying to learn what I'm doing, trying to get better every time. So look, genuine at this moment of not knowing what I'm doing, comments would be great. So you see, once I've done it, I've painted the clothing, the gloves, did the horns, because then when you start doing the bone bits later, it should give a bit of extra detail when you start putting that bone colour on. Next stage, I'm doing leather. So I've used, again, just a red leather colour from Vallejo. And what you're looking at getting here is the straps, and there's a lot on these models to be aware of. You'll find, I think, in this video there that I've missed a strap on the foot here, which I pick up later and realise I've missed. And that's the beauty of a wet palette, actually, is that the stuff stays wet for quite a period of time. Now, I'm showing you one model, but I am actually through this painting up all 6, hence the time jumps. So I am doing all 6 models to this kind of level at each stage. So we've done the leather, we've done the straps, as you've shown there, and on the video I can clearly see the one I've missed on his left foot. And now it's on to the skin. So a nice flat base tone of a dark green, again a Vallejo one that I've used there, just all over. We're not looking at doing highlighting or blending or anything like that at the moment. We're just laying down the basic colours. So after I've done the green, what I've done now is I tend to do large area coverage first. So, we've done the flesh, we've done the leather, we've done whatever. Now I'm doing 2 colours at once, the black and the bone. And that seems a bit of a weird mix, because obviously you're thinking, well, hang on, if you're going to do the bone followed by the black, you might get bleed across from the 2 colours. As long as you keep your brush clean between the 2 colours, you won't get that. Or obviously if you want to use 2 brushes at the same time, you can do. But I just find that when I'm doing very small areas, I prefer just to go through a couple of colours at once, just a bit of a time-saving exercise. So the black on these, there's not a lot that I used on it, so it is just the boots. Being careful not to hit some of the other patches, but if you do, obviously you've got your wet palette that I'm using there, you can just quickly cover over if you wish, making sure to avoid the spikes. And then I've done the bone, as you'll see there. Now when I've done the fingernails, the claws, the actual tusks coming out of the mask, what I've been careful to do is with the tusks as well, leave a bit of that brown showing at the bottom where the tusk joins onto the metalwork, and you'll get a nice sort of 3-tone effect later on, which we're going for. So now this is the one part of the paint scheme that's different from the rest, because what we're doing now is not laying down flat colours. The effect I want from the model, just as I've noticed I've had to clean my hand because I've got some nice blue paint from the lovely GW pots on my finger there. What we're trying to do on this one is a stippling effect. So you can see there it's an older sort of mankier brush with a nice flat end that's sort of only good for a bit of dry brushing or a bit of stippling. So what we're trying to do is put a bit of texture onto the armour panels. I want the armour panels to look a bit manky, a bit rusty, a bit like they've been battered into action, because I don't imagine orcs are going to keep them pristine and clean. So when we're laying the paint down here, we're not doing standard brush strokes. What we're doing is a stippling effect, and you're almost stabbing the paint on. And although it might not come through as clear on camera footage as it does in the flesh, it does put a wrinkled or knobbled texture onto it, which I think looks really good for particular types of armour, particular sorts. When we're doing this, we're trying to avoid putting the paint down anywhere that the armour has got a moulded in chip or crack, because obviously that's where the paint would be coming off, and just picking some random sections where we're going to leave some of the base coat layer of the leadbelcher spray showing through, and you'll see what effect it does later. So that's the whole model done over, and you see random patches left showing for now, and essentially now we've got most of the base layers on the physical model done. It's now about finishing off the base. So, laying some brown down and laying some grey to make the stone effect. You see a previous video I did with how I made these stone bases, some of which I painted up, but generally I like to paint the bases when the models are attached to it. So the grey, back to painting as normally, so just cover every part of the base. I don't cover the sand, you can just go straight there, but you can go straight there with the brown. So it's covering all parts of the base and then doing the same with the brown onto the base. You'll see there, now that model is effectively done, so to speak. So you could use it from here, you know, it's a decent effect, it looks good. But what we're trying to do now is give a bit of extra tone. So my favourite thing to make a bit of a grimdark model, Vallejo sepia wash. I've said before in one of the videos that, look, this stuff's dirt cheap in comparison to a lot of other washes. You know, it's £5-6 for a pot, goes an awful long way. So here you're just looking at slathering it on the model. I've used a thick, flat workshop dry brush for this, and just put a decent layer across the entire model. Now you don't want it to pool up, you know, you don't want excessive volume, but you want enough to do it. You'll get used to using this stuff as you go. But if there is too much in the model, I tend to just dab it off, let it wick off, and I tend to wipe it on paper just because, you know, it's so cheap, this stuff, there's no point trying to reuse it, spread it around the model, because it can just gloop up a bit if you do that. Leave it to dry for a few hours. I left it overnight, and you see the effect that we've got there. So we've got like a gritty, grimy orc now. Now we're going to bring that colour layer back up. But again, you could use it at this state if you wanted to, and there'll be nothing wrong with that. So what we're doing is going back to our wet palette. I had to refresh the light brown on this, that had gone a bit funny, but the rest of it was exactly as I'd used the night before. So again, one of the advantages of using a wet palette. And we're going back over the model with all the same colours we've had before. But what we're doing is we're hitting just the raised areas only. So we're not doing like an edge highlight or anything like that. We are doing slightly thicker than that. But then it will give a three-tone effect, because in the recesses you've got the light brown or the green or whatever you've hit, the darkest tone, because the wash will have darkened it down. In the mid layer you've got it won't be as quite as dark, because the wash will have sort of 50-50 covered it. And on the raised areas you put in the initial paint back on, and that will give you a sort of third tone of each colour. So it's quite, you know, quick and easy to do. So again, you're not edge highlighting, you're doing somewhere in between. Now once it's all been done, you look there again, quite happy with how it looks. But now we're going to take it a little step further, just on two of the colours. So what I've done, if you see on the wet palette there, it's been spun round, I've put a light blue down, and I've put a very bright green down. And then I've taken some of the paint that I've already done, and I've not quite 50-50 with the light, but probably more 60-40, so 60 the original blue, 60 the original green, with the new colours, and just mix them there. And this is a very thin highlight on the flesh, and some thin dotting and texturing onto the blue to a thinner degree of what you had before. And this is the finished model, and look, I think I'm really happy, really pleased with that. I think it's a nice gritty grimdark, but also some good tones for Blood Bowl. Total painting time about 6 hours, so I hope you liked that.